Hey guys, tonight we slip into the flickering shadows of the Holy Roman Empire, where you stand in a candlelit chamber, the air heavy with the scent of melted wax and secrets. Maximilian I, a young archduke with eyes like polished amber, seals a parchment that could bind nations or break them. His silken doublet shimmers, but the faint tremble in his hand betrays a truth. This betrothal is no mere marriage, but a gambit that could topple his fragile throne. You'd last 5 minutes in this den of velvet-clad schemers before stumbling over a whispered plot. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Whisper in the comments where you're drifting off from and the hour on your clock. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's drift into tonight's shadowy tale together. You glide through the stone corridors of Innsbruck's Hofburg, the ancestral seat of the Habsburgs, where torchlight dances on tapestries woven with golden threads. It's 1477, and the air hums with the rustle of parchment and the clink of goblets, as if the walls themselves are conspiring. Maximilian, barely 20, is no ordinary noble. He's the heir to a sprawling empire that's more a patchwork quilt than a unified realm. His father, Emperor Frederick III, is a distant figure, his reign a creaking ship battered by rebellious nobles and rival kings. You catch the faint scent of lavender from a lady's sleeve as she passes, her smile as sharp as a hidden dagger. These Habsburgs, you see, don't just wear wealth. They wield it like a blade, and Maximilian's latest move is his boldest yet. The chamber you enter is a cocoon of opulence, its oak panels carved with eagles and lions, symbols of a dynasty that dreams of eternity. A long table groans under silver platters of candied fruits and spiced wine, the kind of excess that makes you wonder if these nobles thought gold grew on trees. Maximilian stands at the center, his russet doublet catching the glow of 100 candles. He's signing a betrothal contract, his quill scratching like a heartbeat against the silence. This isn't just any marriage, it's his union to Mary of Burgundy, the richest heiress in Europe. Her lands, stretching from the Low Countries to the borders of France, glitter like a jewel in the empire's grasp. But you sense the weight of this moment, the way the air thickens with unspoken risks. Marrying Mary could make Maximilian a king in all but name, or it could drag him into a war he can't win. The historical nugget here is the real pivot point. This 1477 betrothal wasn't just a love match, though Maximilian, ever the romantic, might have hoped so. It was a calculated strike in the chess game of European power. Mary's father, Charles the Bold, had died without a male heir, leaving her vulnerable to France's grasping King Louis XI, who wanted Burgundy's wealth for himself. Maximilian's marriage secured those lands for the Habsburgs, but it also painted a target on his back. France, you see, doesn't take kindly to upstart archdukes stealing their prizes. You can almost hear the distant hoofbeats of armies massing, can't you? Now, let's pause for a quirky elite oddity, because these nobles loved their extravagance. Maximilian, ever the showman, insisted on a wedding feast so lavish that the cooks served peacock pies with feathers reattached, as if the birds might fly off the table. Imagine the servants' faces, sweating over those absurd dishes while the guests toasted to a future that smelled faintly of gunpowder. It's almost comical how they partied while the world outside sharpened its swords. You'd think they'd have saved a few coins for the inevitable battles, but no. Nobles like these turned excess into an art form. You move closer, your shadow mingling with those of the courtiers. A velvet curtain sways, revealing a glimpse of a scribe scribbling furiously, his ink-stained fingers trembling. Is he recording the betrothal terms, or something more sinister? The room buzzes with whispers, some in German, others in French, all laced with ambition. A lady in a saffron gown adjusts her jeweled coif, her eyes darting to a bearded man who clutches a sealed letter. You can't help but wonder, is that letter a pledge of loyalty or a blueprint for betrayal? Maximilian seems oblivious, his focus on the parchment, but you notice the way his jaw tightens when a Burgundian envoy coughs too loudly. This court, you realize, is a stage where every smile hides a script. The scholarly riddle that lingers here is a delicious one. Did Maximilian know the full cost of this betrothal? Historians still debate whether he underestimated France's wrath or if he deliberately courted war to prove his mettle. Some say he was a dreamer, seduced by visions of glory. Others argue he was a pragmatist, betting his future on Burgundy's wealth. You feel the tension in the room, the way the candle flames flicker as if sensing the storm to come. If you were in Maximilian's shoes, would you have signed that parchment or slipped out the back door to avoid the chaos? As you drift through the chamber, the scent of incense curls around you, heavy and sweet, like a secret too rich to share. The courtiers' voices fade to a murmur, but one phrase catches your ear. The Low Countries will be his, or his grave. It's a grim prophecy, and you can't help but chuckle at the melodrama. Nobles always did love their cryptic warnings. Yet there's truth in it. Maximilian's betrothal is a gamble, one that ties his fate to a woman he's barely met and a war he can't yet afford. You glance at him, his youthful face lit by ambition and candlelight, and wonder if he feels the shadows creeping closer. The room grows quieter now, the candles burning low. You slip past a guard in polished armor, his eyes half closed as if he, too, is lulled by the court's hypnotic rhythm. Outside, the night is thick with stars, but here, in this chamber, the real constellations are the alliances being forged and the rivalries being born. Maximilian folds the parchment, his fingers brushing the wax seal, and you catch a glimpse of the Habsburg eagle stamped in crimson. It's a symbol of power, but also of burden. As you drift toward the door, the scent of lavender lingers, mingling with the faint, metallic tang of ink. This betrothal, you realize, is only the beginning, a single thread in a tapestry of triumphs and tragedies yet to unfold. You stand on a windswept hill, the dawn air sharp with the scent of dew and iron, as Maximilian I, now a seasoned warrior, surveys a battlefield that stretches like a canvas of chaos before you. His golden armor gleams under a saffron sunrise, each plate etched with the Habsburg eagle, but you notice a faint dent near his shoulder, a reminder that even emperors are mortal. The year is 1488, and the Holy Roman Empire is a mosaic of fractious duchies, each lord more loyal to their own purse than to Maximilian's crown. You hear the distant clatter of pikes and the low moan of a war horn, but what catches your ear is the quieter sound, the rustle of a scribe's quill, tallying debts that grow faster than the empire's borders. These wars, you see, are as costly as they are dazzling, and Maximilian's ambition is a fire that burns through gold as if it were kindling. The field before you is alive with movement. Knights in russet cloaks adjusting their helms, squires hauling wicker baskets of arrows, and a lone falcon circling above, as if mocking the grounded struggles below. Maximilian's horse snorts, its breath clouding in the chill, and you can't help but smile at the beast's impatience. These nobles, with their endless campaigns, seem to think victory grows on trees, just like their banquets. But as you glide closer, you see the strain in Maximilian's eyes, hidden beneath his visor's shadow. He's fighting not just the French or the rebellious Flemings, but the specter of an empty treasury. Every clash of steel is a coin spent, every banner raised alone unpaid. The historical nugget here is a pivotal one. Maximilian's wars, particularly his campaigns to secure Burgundy and fend off France, were a financial sinkhole. By the late 1480s, his marriage to Mary of Burgundy had brought him the wealthy Low Countries, but also a relentless conflict with King Louis XI and later Charles VIII. The cost of maintaining armies, fortifying castles, and bribing wavering allies drained the Habsburg coffers. You can almost smell the ink of the ledgers, can't you? The Fugger banking family, those shrewd financiers from Augsburg, became Maximilian's lifeline, lending him vast sums at ruinous interest. It's a grim irony. The emperor who dreamed of uniting Europe was often one bad harvest away from pawning his crown. Now, for a quirky elite oddity, picture this. Maximilian, ever the lover of spectacle, once commissioned a suit of armor so ornate it included gilded spurs shaped like tiny dragons. Dragons, as if he expected to slay myths instead of mercenaries. You can't help but chuckle at the thought of his armorer, sweating over those fantastical flourishes while the treasury begged for mercy. It's the kind of extravagance that makes you wonder if these royals ever checked their coin purses before ordering another masterpiece. But that's Maximilian for you. His heart was as bold as his debts were deep. You drift through the camp, the air thick with the tang of smoke and leather. A soldier polishes a breastplate with a rag, muttering about unpaid wages, while a noble in a teal surcoat boasts of his horse's pedigree. You'd think they'd focus on the battle ahead, but no, nobles love their pomp, even when the enemy's at the gate. A tent flap stirs, revealing a table strewn with maps and a bronze inkpot, its contents spilled like a dark omen. Maximilian's advisors huddle there, their whispers sharp as the wind. One gestures to a ledger, his finger tracing a column of numbers that seem to bleed red. The emperor, astride his horse, doesn't see this, but you do. His wars are a glittering facade, hiding a flaw as fatal as a crack in his armor. The scholarly riddle that haunts this moment is a puzzle for the ages. Was Maximilian's relentless campaigning a mark of genius or folly? Historians argue over whether his military ventures against France, the Swiss, even his own rebellious subjects, were a bold strategy to cement Habsburg dominance or a reckless drain on an already fragile empire. Some say he was a visionary, forging a dynasty that would outlast him. Others claim he was a gambler, betting borrowed gold on dreams of glory. You feel the weight of this question as you watch him adjust his helm, the sunrise casting long shadows across his face. If you were his advisor, would you urge him to fight on, or to sheath his sword and face the ledgers? As you move through the camp, the scent of burning wood mingles with the faint sweetness of crushed grass, grounding you in this fleeting moment. A squire drops a bucket of water, cursing under his breath, and you stifle a laugh. Nobles might dream of conquest, but their servants keep the world turning. The horizon glows now, the saffron light softening the harsh edges of the battlefield. Maximilian raises a gauntlet hand, signaling his troops to form ranks. You notice a chain around his neck, a locket glinting with a portrait of Mary, his late wife, whose death in 1482 left him both heartbroken and embattled. Her memory, you realize, is another debt he carries, one that no banker can settle. The wind shifts, carrying the faint jingle of spurs and the murmur of prayers from a nearby chaplain. You catch a glimpse of a banner, its crimson and gold fraying at the edges, much like the empire itself. Maximilian's wars are a tapestry of triumphs and traps, each victory stitching him tighter to his creditors. You can't help but smile at the absurdity, an emperor, clad in dragon-spurred armor, fighting for lands he can't afford to keep. It's the kind of tale that makes you glad you're just a visitor, drifting through this dreamlike scene. As you glide past a flickering campfire, the soldiers' faces blur, their voices fading to a soft hum. The battlefield stretches before you, a canvas of ambition and ruin, and you wonder how long Maximilian's golden armor can hide the cracks beneath. You glide through the grand halls of Vienna's Hofburg, where the air is thick with the scent of beeswax and intrigue, as if the very chandeliers are whispering secrets. It's the 1490s, and Maximilian I, now king of the Romans and poised to claim the imperial crown, presides over a court that glitters like a jewel box but hums with deceit. The marble floors reflect torchlight, casting shadows that dance like uninvited guests, and you can't help but feel you've stepped into a game where every smile hides a dagger. The velvet curtains, heavy with indigo and gold, sway as if nudged by unseen hands, and you wonder if they conceal a plot or merely a draft. These nobles, with their jeweled pins and honeyed words, make scheming look as natural as breathing. Honestly, you'd trip over a conspiracy before you found the banquet hall. The hall is a spectacle of opulence, its long tables laden with silver ewers and platters of roasted pheasant, the kind of feast that makes you think these royals spent gold like it was confetti. Maximilian sits at the head, his russet doublet embroidered with silver threads, his amber eyes scanning the room like a hawk. You notice the way his fingers tap the arm of his chair, a subtle rhythm that betrays his unease. Around him, courtiers in teal and saffron silks murmur, their laughter as delicate as glass but twice as sharp. A lady in a pearl-encrusted gown adjusts her coif, her gaze flicking to a bearded envoy clutching a sealed letter. You catch a whiff of her lavender perfume, masking something bitter, perhaps the scent of betrayal itself. The historical nugget here is a juicy one. Maximilian's court in the 1490s was a hotbed of intrigue, particularly during his struggles to secure his son Philip's succession in the Low Countries and his own claim to the Holy Roman Empire. His allies, including the powerful electors, princes who chose the emperor, were notoriously fickle, their loyalty bought with promises and gold. The Swabian League, a coalition of southern German nobles, was both his shield and his leash, demanding concessions while offering support. You can almost hear the clink of coins changing hands, can't you? Every alliance was a transaction, every toast a potential trap, as Maximilian juggled the ambitions of his court with the looming threat of French and Ottoman rivals. Now, for a quirky elite oddity, let's talk about the Habsburgs' obsession with portraits. Maximilian, ever the master of image, commissioned miniature paintings of himself and his allies, carried in gilded lockets like modern-day selfies. These weren't just for vanity. Oh no, they were diplomatic tools, exchanged like calling cards to seal alliances or woo potential brides. Imagine the court painter, hunched over a tiny canvas, muttering about deadlines while Maximilian demanded another heroic likeness. You have to laugh. Nobles spent fortunes on these pocket-sized boasts, as if a painted jawline could win a war. It's the kind of excess that makes you glad you're just drifting through, not footing the bill. You move closer, your shadow blending with those of the courtiers. A bronze candelabrum flickers, casting light on a table strewn with maps and wax-sealed scrolls. An advisor in a velvet cap leans close to a Tyrolean lord, their whispers sharp as the quill scratching nearby. You catch a phrase, the elector's vote, and realize the stakes. Maximilian's imperial crown isn't guaranteed, and every noble here has a price. A young page, barely 16, scurries past with a wicker basket of bread, nearly tripping over a trailing cloak. Poor lad, you think, chuckling. He's more likely to stumble into a plot than a tip. The room hums with tension, the air heavy with incense and ambition, as if the very walls are holding their breath. The scholarly riddle that lingers is a tantalizing one. Did Maximilian master his court's intrigues, or was he their puppet? Historians debate whether he was a cunning orchestrator, playing nobles against each other to secure his power, or a man stretched thin, outmaneuvered by allies who smiled to his face while plotting in the shadows. Some argue his charm and vision held the court together. Others say his reliance on loans from the Fuggers, recall those bankers from the battlefield, gave his allies leverage to twist his arm. You feel the question's weight as you watch him raise a goblet, toasting a noble whose eyes glint with secrets. If you were in his place, would you trust that smile, or slip a guard behind the curtain? As you drift through the hall, the scent of spiced wine curls around you, rich and heady, mingling with the faint tang of ink from a scribe's spilled pot. A lady in a teal gown laughs, her voice like a bell, but you notice her hand lingering near a folded letter. Is it a love note, or a coded plan to sway an elector? You can't help but smile at the melodrama. Nobles love their secrets as much as their wine. Maximilian, meanwhile, gestures to a musician, who plucks a lute with trembling fingers, as if he senses the undercurrent of deceit. The melody is soft, almost hypnotic, but it can't drown out the whispers that ripple through the crowd like a breeze through reeds. You pause by a tapestry depicting a hunt, its threads faded but still vibrant with crimson and gold. It reminds you of that betrothal contract from years ago, sealed in a candlelit chamber. Recall that crimson Habsburg eagle? That gamble brought Maximilian wealth, but also enemies. And now his court is a chessboard where every piece might turn traitor. A noble in a saffron cloak brushes past, his sleeve catching on a silver candlestick, and you stifle a laugh. Clumsy courtiers, plotting world domination while tripping over their own finery. The hall grows warmer now, the chandeliers casting a golden glow that softens the edges of deceit. Maximilian's voice rises, proposing a toast to unity, but you notice a few goblets hesitate before lifting. Unity, it seems, is as fragile as the glass in their hands. As you glide toward the far end of the hall, the air grows cooler, the scent of incense fading into something earthier, like damp stone. A guard in polished armor stands by a heavy oak door, his eyes scanning the crowd as if he expects a shadow to strike. You catch a glimpse of Maximilian, his face lit by a rare smile, but there's a tightness to it, like a man who knows the cost of every ally. The lute's melody slows, its notes drifting like leaves on a quiet stream, and you feel the court's pulse slowing too. This world of velvet and deceit is a dreamlike maze, where loyalty is a mask and every jeweled smile hides a price. As you slip past the guard, the hall's glow fades, leaving you to wonder what plots will unravel under the cover of night. You drift into a moonlit chapel, its air cool and heavy with the scent of frankincense, as if the stones themselves are mourning. The year is 1506, and Maximilian I, now Holy Roman Emperor, kneels before a marble tomb, his silhouette framed by flickering candlelight. The tomb bears the effigy of his son, Philip the Fair, whose youthful face, carved in cold stone, seems to watch you with unseeing eyes. The chapel's stained glass windows cast slivers of indigo and crimson across the floor, painting the scene with a ghostly glow. You feel the weight of loss here, as if the very walls whisper of a dynasty's dreams cut short. These Habsburgs, you think with a wry smile, built empires but couldn't outrun fate. Imagine misplacing an heir like you'd lose a glove. The chapel is small but opulent, its altar adorned with silver candelabras and a velvet cloth embroidered with gold. You notice a faint draft, stirring the flames, as if Philip's spirit lingers, restless. Maximilian's hands, once steady when signing that betrothal contract, recall that candlelit chamber? Now tremble as he clutches a locket with Mary's portrait, his late wife whose death first broke his heart. His russet cloak pools around him, its edges frayed like his hopes. Outside, the night is silent save for the distant hoot of an owl, a sound that feels like a warning. The emperor, you realize, is no stranger to grief, but this loss of his son, his heir, carries a shadow darker than any courtly plot. The historical nugget here is a poignant one. Philip the Fair, Maximilian's son and heir, died suddenly in 1506 at the age of 28, leaving the Habsburg dynasty teetering. Philip had been king of Castile through his marriage to Joanna of Castile, and his death sparked a crisis of succession, as Joanna's mental instability left their young son, Charles, as the next hope. Whispers of poison swirled at the time, fueled by Philip's rivalry with Spanish nobles and his father's enemies. You can almost taste the bitterness in the air, can't you? Maximilian, who had fought wars and woven alliances to secure his legacy, now faced the unbearable, a son gone, and with him, the promise of a seamless succession. Now, for a quirky elite oddity, consider this. Maximilian, ever the showman, once organized a tournament in Philip's honor where knights jousted with lances painted gold, as if a splash of paint could guarantee immortality. You have to chuckle at the thought of squires scrambling to polish those absurd lances while the court pretended it wasn't drowning in debt. It's the kind of extravagance that makes you wonder if these nobles ever tired of their own theatrics. Picture the scene, Maximilian cheering from a velvet-draped stand, while his treasury begged for mercy. Honestly, you'd have sold the lances and bought a good night's sleep. You glide closer, your shadow mingling with the candlelight's flicker. A priest in a teal robe murmurs prayers, his voice a soft drone that blends with the rustle of Maximilian's cloak. You notice a wicker basket by the altar, filled with wilted roses, their petals scattered like forgotten promises. The emperor's face, lit by the glow, is etched with lines deeper than you saw in the court. Recall those jeweled smiles hiding plots? Here, there's no mask, only a father's sorrow. A silver chalice gleams on the altar, catching your eye, and you wonder if it holds wine or something more symbolic, like the weight of a dynasty's hopes. The chapel feels smaller now, its walls closing in with the weight of what's been lost. The scholarly riddle that haunts this moment is a chilling one. Was Philip's death a twist of fate or a shadowed act of retribution? Historians still ponder whether his sudden illness, officially typhus, was natural or the work of poison, perhaps by Spanish courtiers resentful of Habsburg influence. Some say Maximilian's relentless ambition, his wars and debts, invited a curse upon his line. Others argue it was mere chance, a cruel roll of the dice. You feel the questions chill as you watch Maximilian trace the tomb's edge, his fingers lingering on the carved Habsburg eagle. If you were in his place, would you believe in curses or search for a hidden vial in some rival's sleeve? As you drift through the chapel, the scent of frankincense grows fainter, replaced by the earthy tang of stone and wax. A lone candle sputters, casting long shadows that twist like specters. You catch a glimpse of a tapestry on the far wall, its threads depicting a hunt. much like the one in the court, but here, the stag's eyes seem to follow you. It's almost comical, how even the decor feels like it's keeping secrets. Maximilian rises, his movement slow, as if the weight of his crown is heavier than ever. You notice a scroll tucked into his belt, its wax seal glinting faintly. Is it a letter to his grandson Charles, or a plea to the heavens for answers? The emperor's grief is a quiet storm, and you can't help but feel its pull, like a tide drawing you deeper into this dreamlike scene. The owl hoots again. Its call sharper now, and you smile at the thought of nobles jumping at shadows, mistaking birds for omens. These royals, with their endless dramas, could turn a breeze into a prophecy. Yet there's truth in the chapel's stillness, a sense that Philip's death has shifted the empire's course. You glide past a pew, its wood worn smooth by countless prayers, and notice a single rose petal caught in a crack, as if it, too, refuses to let go. Maximilian's gaze lingers on the tomb, and you wonder if he sees his son's face or his own ambitions reflected in the stone. The locket at his chest glints, a callback to Mary's portrait, a reminder that love and loss are the threads binding this dynasty's tapestry. As you move toward the chapel's door, the moonlight fades, leaving only the candle's glow to guide you. The air grows softer, the scent of roses lingering like a whispered farewell. A guard outside shifts, his armor clinking faintly, and you stifle a laugh. Imagine guarding a chapel when the real threats are the ghosts within. Maximilian kneels again, his head bowed, and the priest's prayers slow to a murmur, like a lullaby for a grieving emperor. The chapel is a cocoon of sorrow, its walls holding the echoes of a father's dreams and a dynasty's fragility. As you slip into the night, the stars above seem dimmer, as if they, too, mourn the heir whose loss has left whispers of accursed ambition. You drift into a twilight throne room in Innsbruck's Hofburg, where the air carries the faint scent of aged oak and fading glory, as if the very walls are exhaling the weight of years. It's 1519, and Maximilian I, now an emperor worn by time, sits upon a throne carved with eagles, his scepter heavy in his hand. The room is bathed in the soft indigo glow of dusk, streaming through high windows, and you notice the tapestries, once vibrant with crimson and gold, like that hunt scene in the court, now frayed, their threads unraveling like the empire itself. Shadows creep across the floor, as if claiming the throne inch by inch, and you can't help but smile wryly. These Habsburgs built a legacy to outlast empires, yet even their grandeur seems to tire. Honestly, you'd last a day in this court before misplacing the crown in a pile of scrolls. The throne room is a study in faded opulence, its marble pillars streaked with dust, its silver candelabras dimmed by melted wax. Maximilian's russet cloak, once resplendent, hangs loosely on his frame, and his amber eyes, once sharp as a hawk's, now carry a distant weariness. You hear the faint scratch of a quill from a corner, where a scribe tallies accounts. Debts, always debts, those silent foes from the battlefield days. A velvet curtain stirs, revealing a glimpse of a wicker basket filled with sealed letters, their wax stamps glinting like stars in the gloom. The emperor's advisors, clad in teal and saffron, murmur in clusters, their voices low but sharp, like blades hidden in silk. This court, you realize, is a stage where the final act is unfolding, and every player knows the script is ending. The historical nugget here is a critical one. By 1519, Maximilian's reign was drawing to a close, his ambitious vision for a unified Holy Roman Empire fraying under the weight of debts, rebellions, and the loss of his son Philip. Recall that moonlit chapel? His grandson, Charles V, was poised to inherit a sprawling empire, but Maximilian's death in January of that year left his legacy teetering. He had spent decades forging alliances through marriages, like that betrothal to Mary of Burgundy, and waging wars funded by Fugger loans, but the empire remained a fragile mosaic. You can almost smell the ink of those final decrees, can't you? His efforts to secure Charles's election as emperor were his last gamble, a bid to cement the Habsburg name before the shadows closed in. Now, for a quirky elite oddity, let's talk about Maximilian's peculiar passion for his own myth. He commissioned a massive woodcut series, the Triumphal Arch, a paper monument depicting his victories in fantastical detail. Think dragons, giants, and himself as a near-mythical hero. Imagine the printers, sweating over those enormous blocks, muttering about their emperor's ego while the treasury groaned. You have to chuckle. Maximilian spent more on self-glorification than most nobles spent on feasts. It's the kind of excess that makes you wonder if he thought a good story could pay off his debts. Picture him, grinning at those woodcuts, while his advisors begged for a budget. Nobles, right? They'd rather frame their legend than their finances. You glide closer, your shadow blending with the room's deepening dusk. A noble in a teal doublet adjusts his jeweled chain, whispering to another about the elector's vote for Charles. You catch a phrase, the empire's future, and feel the tension, like a thread stretched to breaking. Maximilian coughs, a dry sound that echoes in the vast room, and you notice a locket at his chest, glinting with Mary's portrait, a callback to his youth's ambition and loss. A page scurries past, nearly dropping a bronze ink pot, and you stifle a laugh. Poor boy, dodging plots and pots with equal panic. The room hums with a quiet unease, the scent of incense faint now, overtaken by the musty tang of old stone. This is no longer the glittering court of velvet and deceit. It's a twilight stage, where every gesture feels like a farewell. The scholarly riddle that lingers is a haunting one. Did Maximilian's grand vision secure the Habsburgs' future, or did it sow the seeds of their unraveling? Historians debate whether his relentless pursuit of power, through wars, marriages, and propaganda, built an empire that endured or stretched it too thin, leaving Charles V to inherit a throne as fragile as glass. Some see him as a master strategist, others as a dreamer whose ambition outpaced his means. You feel the question's weight as you watch Maximilian trace the arm of his throne, his fingers lingering on the carved eagle. If you were his counselor, would you praise his legacy, or warn him of the shadows creeping closer? As you drift through the room, the air grows cooler, the indigo light softening the harsh lines of the throne. A tapestry flutters, its faded threads depicting a crowned figure, Maximilian, perhaps, or a dream of what he hoped to be. You smile at the thought of nobles weaving their own myths, as if a needle could stitch up fate. A guard by the door shifts, his armor clinking faintly, and you can't help but chuckle. Imagine guarding an emperor when the real threat is time itself. Maximilian rises, his movements slow, and gestures to a scribe, who hands him a scroll. Is it a final decree, or a letter to Charles, urging him to carry the Habsburg flame? The room feels smaller now, its grandeur shrinking under the weight of years and unkept promises. The wind outside howls, rattling the windows, and you catch a faint scent of rain, sharp and clean, cutting through the musty air. Maximilian's gaze drifts to a chandelier, its candles nearly spent, and you wonder if he sees his own fading star. The advisor's whispers fade, their faces blurring in the twilight, and you feel the scene slipping into a dreamlike haze. This throne room, once a stage for ambition, is now a quiet requiem, its shadows claiming the last glimmers of Maximilian's reign. As you glide toward the door, the scepter in his hand catches the light, a final spark of gold in a world turning to dusk. You slip from the throne room, the indigo twilight fading into a soft, endless void, where the scent of oak and wax dissolves into a gentle breeze. The Habsburg eagles, the clink of armor, the rustle of velvet, all drift away, like leaves on a quiet stream. You're floating now, weightless, as the stars above Innsbruck blur into a soothing glow, their light a whispered promise of rest. The empire's burdens, Maximilian's dreams, the shadows of his court, they fade, leaving only the hum pattern. You drift through a grand hall, the air thick with the scent of ambition and intrigue. Maximilian I, Holy Roman Emperor, stands at the center, his golden armor gleaming under a saffron sunrise, but you sense the shadows creeping closer. These nobles, with their velvet cloaks and jeweled smiles, wove a tapestry of power that unraveled in whispers. Was it fate, or a hidden hand that shaped their fall? Share your thoughts below, and let the night carry you to slumber. Subscribe to Dark Lens Stories for more tales of noble shadows. Next, a Renaissance duke's enigmatic demise.